Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I feel the need to follow on from my video about Boris Johnson's novel plan to build a tunnel from Scotland to Ireland, because he now has an even more insane one. And I'm not kidding. See, I thought when I saw this, someone was describing a script for a new Monty Python, until I realised that it seemed to be serious, at least for the Prime Minister. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, first of all, we had Boris Johnson's plan to build a bridge from Scotland to Northern Ireland, to boost trade. He then seemed to lose interest in that. It may have something to do with the trench full of World War II bombs that lie in the way. So, the other thing, I suppose, is maybe someone just told him it's very windy there. Now, I don't know. I live near the Humber Bridge, and it is closed to high-sided vehicle when the wind gets up a bit, like today. I can only imagine how few days in the year a bridge to the northwest would be open to lorries. Then he recently talked about an undersea tunnel. Well, we'll tunnel under the bombs, they said. Now, this presented all sorts of logistical challenges that simply didn't exist when building, say, the Channel Tunnel, for those who think, well, we've done that before. And even that took 3 decades, but I've discussed that in the last video. But that was that. I had no doubt that he would just get bored of this idea as well. After all, he has got form on this. As Mayor of London, he spent taxpayer money on initiating projects like the Garden Bridge and the floating airport. Nothing came of them. The only thing he actually built was a pissing cable car across the Thames. But now the scheme has become more insane. And it honestly, it reminds me, and I'm sure it reminds you, of the sorts of extreme parodies that I would watch as a kid. Like Spitting Image or Brass Eyes, something like that. So you have in the news, the Prime Minister wants to build a tunnel between Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then a comedy spoof show does a sketch where the Prime Minister wants to build multiple tunnels under the sea, all connecting in a giant underground roundabout under the Isle of Man. Yes, very funny, all very silly, only this isn't a spoof. It's actually what Boris Johnson wants to do. This is it. This is reported in the Times. Now, this is a Tory supporting but largely grown-up newspaper. You look at this insane map, and you perhaps wonder if part of the aim was to avoid that whole, Beaufort's Dyke area, which, as I say, is the general area we've got a lot of World War II munitions. They do get about, though. There have been reports of them washing up on the beaches of Western Scotland. But according to the reports, it wasn't so much fears of being blown up that had the plans changed, although that was, I think, part of it. But the fact that the intended landfall in Scotland, Stranraer, has very poor transport links. Now, as the objective for such a harebrained scheme is to pump freight around the different parts of the UK, it's not really much bloody good if you'd never get the traffic anywhere near one end of the tunnel to take advantage. So it was worked out that it would have to cost as much to put in the high-speed rail links as it would to build the tunnel. Which immediately raised an interesting question for me, because for someone to be able to say that, it means that a team has spent time, and of course our money, working out what it would cost to build the tunnel, as well as what it would cost to build the high-speed rail line from Carlisle to Stranraer. My question is, how much was it then? Because the only reference to a cost for anything like this I can find is a different Scotland to Northern Ireland tunnel that was proposed years ago. And the tag for that at the time, which is about 5 or 6 years ago, was £20 billion. Which, if I'm going to be honest, sounds a little bit on the cheap side. Because for something that would take such a long time, I can't imagine that the final cost would be anywhere near as low. So the idea is you connect Northern Ireland, Scotland, the Isle of Man, and bits of England. And you know what this is, don't you? Forget about this crap about boosting trade. I mean, it could, don't get me wrong. If you improve transport links, of course you boost trade, particularly if you boost transport links in the areas where trade might naturally wish to travel. It won't compensate for the damage to trade that Brexit has done, but it will boost it compared to the here and now post-Brexit, inevitably. But that's not what this will be about. See, This plan now, if you look at it, it connects England, Scotland and Northern Ireland. This idea will have come out from, I imagine, this crackpot team for coming up with ideas to protect the Union, won't it? A shame none of them just suggest that the Prime Minister simply stop screwing over the people of this country as the single best way to do that. But no, they've tried him, what did they do? They got him to pretend to live in a tent in Scotland for a bit, stamping vials of vaccine with the Union flag. Boris Johnson in Parliament simply telling the elected representatives of Scotland just to shut up. None of it seemed to work. So maybe now he's trying to connect it all together, like a giant set of underwater handcuffs. Tunnels will keep us all connected. Unfortunately, in case you hadn't noticed, Prime Minister, we have a tunnel connecting Britain with the EU. How's that gone for keeping us together? In fact, you might also imagine that such a project would be the kiss of death for the Union. Better make sure they all connect with places that have the expansion potential for customs facilities, because you're going to need them at the ends before the project is even completed at this rate. Because could you imagine it? So I don't know how long this is supposed to take. There's obviously been feasibility studies done, but I'm not privy to them. I don't know the cost. But what would actually be more interesting to me is the timescale. What time frame do you imagine it taking? The project gets the go-ahead. Let's imagine this. Let's say it takes 15 years. That's half the time for the Channel Tunnel. And the Times seem to think that it's entirely possible that Boris Johnson is going to give it the go-ahead. And then at its completion, let us imagine that in 15 years hence, you've got Northern Ireland and Scotland both separated from the UK. But Scotland, say, still not part of the EU. So in this scenario, you'd have 3 different customs areas. I mean, we'll imagine Scotland will be making steps to join at least the customs union with the EU, if not the EU itself. But let's say we've got this point in time where we've got these tunnels and we've got the 3 different customs areas, meaning you'd need massive customs outposts at the underground exchange under the Isle of Man. The complexities of managing the whole thing boggle my mind. And it's not just me. Because don't imagine that you've got this whole team in Whitehall who are, which is the base of operations for most of the civil service in the country, getting on board with this. The Times reported several of Johnson's senior aides, that means his senior advisors, officials, as describing the plan as batshit crazy. In fact, although in one sense this plan is not being reported as a spoof on a comedy show, part of it maybe is because someone else was informing the newspaper that the roundabout, which is frankly the maddest part of the whole scheme, the roundabout was put in to show how nuts it all is. Now, I'm not entirely sure exactly what the implication is there. I take that to be an implication that someone put it in to try and get the Prime Minister to see how silly the idea is and abandon it. For Boris Johnson to look at it and go, actually, this is just ridiculous, isn't it? That's the way the report reads to me, that Johnson's advisors are desperately trying to get the Prime Minister to just drop the whole thing. But he keeps insisting on pursuing it because, do you know what? The roundabout wheeze did not work. So just as when he was Mayor of London, it seems that Boris Johnson as Prime Minister is going to keep wasting public money on schemes that will never see fruition. According to the Byline Times research, he's already the most wasteful Prime Minister we've ever had, wasting £57.2 billion in his first year of office. And bear in mind, when we talk about waste, we're not saying, because I have different political ideas to Boris Johnson, he spends some money on this, I don't agree that it's a good use of public money, so I call it waste. No, that's not what we're calling waste. We mean actual waste. It means money spent where we didn't get anything in return for it, or we paid more than the going rate and the waste calculated is the difference between what was paid and what should have been paid. £57.2 billion of pure waste in his first year alone. And bear in mind, the bulk of that first year was before the pandemic hit our shores. I mean, this tunnel project is particularly baffling to me because he could never hope to see it completed in his political lifetime. He's not a man for the long term, is he? He only ever acts for the short term gain. A project such as this, to me, seems quite out of character as far as I can tell. But there we are. What we're being told is he wants to keep pursuing this, and he will keep pursuing this as long as he's Prime Minister. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.